Hi guys, so the Brexiteers really have been losing their minds this week. We went from holding all the cards to snowflakes melting over the inability to export sausages. Politicians and their friends in the media declared a sausage war. Well, the Brexiteers aren't just angry with the European Union, they have a chip on their shoulder it seems when it comes to Ireland, and some of them are spreading rumours that the EU is willing to kick Ireland out of the single market in order to save it. EU sources emphatically rejected this idea, the one that checks will be put in place between Ireland and the rest of the European Union. The rumour says that this is one of the possible solutions on the table to protect the single market if Britain persists in not implementing the checks it had agreed to as part of the withdrawal agreement. It seems the idea was leaked to the newspaper Politico at its European branch. It was described as an emergency plan that was being discussed by European diplomats and officials. The plan being to introduce checks on goods moving from Ireland into the rest of the single market. Following the newspaper report, sources from the Irish government dismissed it as, and I quote, a load of shite. The European Commission Vice President Maroš Šefčovič responded to the report saying that it was simply not true. And one EU diplomat was even more cutting with his language. He said, and I quote, EU leaders are quite simple. They will not allow a former coloniser to force Ireland out of the internal market. Unity above all. Ireland will not be dropped. The UK will have to start with implementing the deal. The European Union is of course in a difficult spot. They agreed to trust the UK government to uphold its side of the bargain to carry out the checks in Northern Ireland on its behalf. They believed that the UK would respect international law, and now that trust has been deeply damaged. They have little choice but to keep on insisting that Boris Johnson's government respect the agreement. For as long as Britain stays out of the single market and the customs union, these checks will be required. Ironically, Ireland, that has been one of the loudest voices against Brexit, is actually trying to lobby on behalf of the British for greater compromises on rules to protect the single market. Dublin understands the risks to peace and is trying to push the EU to compromise more and more. However, the European Union can compromise only so much, as we must remember that it's not a government but a collection of countries, and many of them are growing more and more uneasy with the appeasement strategy the EU has towards Boris Johnson's government. They fear the single market could be at risk. The Irish government, in an attempt to reach a solution to the protocol, has suggested compromises that went too far in loosening the rules, one diplomat suggested. Some member states see a sausage today becoming a list the length of your arm tomorrow. There is growing disquiet also in Ireland when it comes to compromise with the United Kingdom. Remember, Great Britain is no longer a member of the European Union, so the dynamic has completely changed. Some members of the Irish Parliament and MEPs have spoken out against the potential damage all of this is doing to Ireland's relationship not just with the EU but with other member states. Fianna Fáil MEP Billy Kelleher warned, and I quote, Ireland is an unashamedly pro-European country. Our people see the obvious benefits of being in the EU, and in particular the European Union's single market. Any attempt to restrict access to this market for Ireland and Irish companies will severely affect our relationship with the European Union. The EU cannot let the British government get away with failing to implement the protocol properly and at the same time punish Ireland. That is not what EU membership is about. The EU sees a clear risk to the single market via Northern Ireland due to what they refer to as the British not upholding their side of the withdrawal agreement. And they are right. You don't hear EU diplomats complaining about the Northern Ireland Protocol. The difference between the EU and Boris Johnson's government is that one side actually read the withdrawal agreement before signing it. The UK government blames the EU for being too puristic in its interpretation of the rules, and that the requirement to implement certain checks has become politically toxic to the unionist community. A huge problem with this argument is that the Northern Ireland Protocol is generally seen as a problem within a certain section of the unionist community, not all of it. The majority of people in Northern Ireland want the protocol to work. It really is a case of the tail wagging the dog here. The idea of cutting the Republic of Ireland off from the rest of the European Union by imposing checks between the island of Ireland and Europe would be an absolute disaster for the Irish economy. Irish businesses will be in the same boat as UK companies that have to fill out mountains of paperwork. Also, this would, in a sense, be punishing Ireland because of Brexit, something that it warned against for years and had no chance to vote on. We seem to be no closer to any political progress as Brexit Minister Lord Frost and Mr. Šefčovič ended their discussions in London this week with no sign of a breakthrough. Once again, Frost has called on the EU to adopt a common sense approach to checks on goods moving from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. However, he has never actually explained what that means, and unfortunately the media have never really pushed him to answer. Šefčovič said that Brussels would act firmly and resolutely if the UK unilaterally delayed checks in Northern Ireland. We have been here before. The rumour I talked about may have originated from the likes of the ERG, the hardliner Brexit group of Tory MPs. They suggested that Article 349 could be triggered, and this would force the EU to kick Ireland out of the single market as to protect it from Brexit. The problem with Article 349 is that it applies only to overseas territories, not member states, and it cannot be triggered by non-EU countries like the United Kingdom. I will leave a link in the description of this video to some more details of Article 349 if you want to read it. Look, there are only two viable ways out of this mess. Either the UK government follows through with its commitments to the withdrawal agreement and carries out the checks it promised it would, or the UK as a whole rejoins the single market and the customs union. Boris Johnson's government promised the people of both Great Britain and Northern Ireland that he would deliver them the Brexit that some have described as cakeism. You can have your cake and eat it too. He promised the DUP and businesses in Northern Ireland that no checks would take place. He's now avoiding his responsibility as part of the withdrawal agreement. The EU promised to respond, and as I said before, none of this was actually necessary. Interestingly, rejoining the single market and the customs union could be more likely to happen than previously thought, but that's for another video. Let me know in the comments section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?